Mark, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, we're good to go. Yes. Okay, perfect. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you, everyone, for coming. Unfortunately, Marnie and Megan, I'm going to have to rely on you because all I can see right now is Megan. So I'll need, if there's questions or comments, if you can relay them to me, that would be fantastic. Yes?
Sorry, Mr. Chair. I just want to make sure you're able to see everyone else on screen, like yourself, Brock, and Jerry.
Yes, I can.
Okay, perfect.
I will call the meeting to order. It is 1:01 p.m. Again, thank you everyone for coming. Thank you as well to our guests who will be speaking later within this session. Today we have, this is a special meeting to discuss a couple of different items. We do have a recommended adoption for agenda. I'd like to ask the committee's indulgence to move item 7.1 to the end of the agenda after 8.4, as I will be declaring this under item 5. I do have a pecuniary interest and will be turning the meeting over to James as a result. Would someone be willing to move that?
Moved.
Brock, thank you. A seconder?
I second the motion.
Thank you. Any comments, questions, discussion?
May I ask, explain again why we're moving it? I'm a little unclear on that.
I have a conflict of interest. And because I'm on Zoom, what I will do is I will just drop off the meeting at that point.
I see. I'm just, it's at that point, you're going to leave the meeting. I was a bit unclear about that.
Yes, that's correct.
Fine.
Sorry.
Thank you. Thank you for that.
Any other questions? None being seen, I will call the question. All those in favor? Opposed? And was that carried? Okay, so that was carried. Thank you. So that brings us to the adoption of the minutes. The minutes have been circulated. May I have a mover for the minutes?
James.
James, thank you. Seconder?
I so move, or second. Okay.
Thank you. Any comments, questions, or corrections? Not seeing any, I will call the question. All of those in favor? Opposed? And that's been carried. Thank you, everyone. Item 5, declaration of pecuniary interest. As mentioned, I am declaring a pecuniary interest in item 7.1. My firm had worked with the municipality on a grant application for the subject property. And following discussion with the clerk and with staff, I will be declaring a conflict as a result. Are there any other declarations? I'm not hearing any, so I will move on to delegations presentations. We currently do not have any identified, but I know Jerry is here to speak specifically to 7.1, so I'm going to assume that he's going to speak at the time of the application. Yes, okay, perfect. Thank you. That with the reordered agenda, that brings us to item 7.2, Heritage Register. And I would ask staff if they have any comments to start.
Thank you.
And through you, Mr. Chair. Earlier this week, staff had circulated a draft municipal heritage register to the members of the committee. We've compiled the list of listed properties, designated properties, have tried to capture what is required through the new and updated Ontario Heritage Act, including links to the bylaws for the designated properties. Tried to capture other levels of protection as well through the draft register, including provincial significance, provincial easements, and federal heritage protection. Would like to draw on the experience and knowledge of the committee for input as to any errors or omissions in the draft, and looking for the committee's endorsement of it so that it can move through and up to council for endorsement at that level. And then subsequent to that, posting on the website to meet the Ontario Heritage Act requirements that were updated through Bill 23. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm going to open the floor to any questions or comments regarding the revised register.
This is James.
James, okay.
I have 4 edits right away. Item number 2. 207 Black Church Greenstone Stables. My understanding is that that was demolished at some point in the past, so it should be deleted. And I'd like confirmation on that from one of our other longtime members.
Mr. Chair, may I speak to that?
Certainly, yes.
This building was demolished in 2018. And in fact, I would like to take this opportunity to ask if we could get a copy of the demolition permit that was issued by the township at that time.
I'm not certain if that's public information or not, so I'll have to look into it.
Why wouldn't it be?
I'm not certain. I don't know the details of what we're allowed to provide under building code. So I just have to look into that.
I see.
Thank you. I'll carry on with the next one. Number 54, 25 King Street, Weston Hotel. I believe that was destroyed by fire. I don't have a date.
May I speak to that?
Certainly, yes.
I spent some time going through this list and looking at the buildings on Google Maps, and there is a building at 25 King Street. It's a small brick building, not necessarily a hotel structure as described here, but there is a building there, and it's a building built in the 19th century.
Okay, so as a listed property, we'll see if there's any corrections by owners, etc. Number 75 is the Trinity Church down at County 2, and it's recorded as 843 Prince Street. I'm not certain that Prince Street goes down that far. The Google Maps records that as County 3.
It's the building faces onto County Road 2, but the side of the lot is where that number is.
Yeah, so I'm just questioning whether that's called Prince Street or County 3. And number 77, 1086 Prince Street, Haffey. Was that not destroyed by fire also?
There's a new house there now.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes.
So that should be deleted. I had some other names of houses that weren't entered, and whether those are worth adding. I'll take that under advisement.
Through you, Mr. Chair.
Yes.
The purpose of this discussion really is just to make sure that whatever information here is as correct as possible before it gets posted on the website. Is that correct?
Yes.
Just for clarification, this will have to go to council. So there will be a report to council at the July meeting, and then it would be posted.
if I may.
Yes.
So there are a couple spelling errors. I don't know how important you think that is. It seemed to me I had one other thing here that I wanted to ask about. The bylaws that are mentioned, it's not totally clear, although I suppose it is in some ways because of where the property is located, but it's the bylaws came from 3 different prior municipalities. And it's not really clear that that's from the different, if you understand what I'm saying. It gives you the bylaw number, year and number, but it doesn't say which township, which original. Yeah. And as far as the descriptions go, even if they're a little off, these descriptions are going up on the website as well.
My understanding is that is required under the legislation. My question to staff is, I'm assuming these are the verbatim descriptions from the bylaw. Sorry, you're muted.
Yeah, so that's those references there in terms of like the listed properties in particular. It's information that we had on our most up-to-date files for each of the properties.
Any other questions or comments? I just had a couple. Looking at the inventory, I spent a little bit of time going through historicplaces.ca as well. Have we identified the Thousand Islands Park, which is a national park, within our inventory as well? There are a couple entries for specific structures within the park on the website. So it might be useful to flag that as well. And the only other comment I have, and this can be addressed at a later point, the bylaw date for my property is wrong. So we can deal with that later.
James, I had in terms of those national park sites on Grenadier Island, is that what you're referring to, Marcus? Massey Farmstead and West Grenadier Island Pavilion? Yes,
there's a couple throughout the park. I just downloaded them all. I haven't located all of them yet, but those would be what I am referring to, yes.
If I may, for things like spelling errors and a couple of other things, can I just email that to you? Is that the best way to deal with that?
Certainly. Thank you. Yeah.
Right.
And are there any other comments, questions or corrections? Sorry.
If I may, just for my own clarification, are the National Historic Sites on the same list? Being the Rideau Canal at one end and the Lansdowne Iron Works in Lyndhurst. Are they listed?
those are currently in this version of the register.
That
Yes.
was my question.
Any other comments, questions?
James, if we're completed with suggested edits, et cetera, I just wonder, are we going to hear or discuss during this meeting how this is going into the website, what the appearance of that information is going to be? Would ask staff that.
The appearance is the document that's in front of you. So you've given us the additional photos. We can look at how we can incorporate them, but basically what we've provided to you is what it will look like on the website. We will publish the document as it is, subject to the corrections and the typographical errors, if you can forward them to us.
And in terms of finding that, that will be under the living section somehow of the township website.
We will figure out the right location and send out the links once we've got it there.
Thanks.
A question for staff. I noted in your response to James that you are going to put the document up as it is. Will staff consider moving forward, looking at a couple different options, like if we are bringing in photographs and new up-to-date information?
I think we're open to discussions on that. At this point, we need to get something up to meet the requirements of the province. So yeah, we can certainly have future conversations about what it looks like, but right now we just want to get something on the website.
Perfect, thank you. Any other questions? Not hearing or seeing any. I believe you need a motion for us to support. Would someone move adoption of the register as presented with the recommended changes, corrections, and details provided?
I so move.
Seconder?
I'll second it.
Jonathan's here now.
Any further questions, comments? Megan?
Mr. Chair, if I may, so that was moved by Keith and seconded by Art.
Okay. Thank you. So I will call the question. All of those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you so much. That brings us to, just before we go on, I just wanted to advise the committee members of details we just received from the ministry at the Heritage Conference last week. I've just sent this document to staff literally 5 minutes before, and I know James was at the sessions as well. The ministry has provided clarification that although properties that are listed will have to be removed after the 2-year period, that does not preclude the municipality from moving forward with designation in that following 5-year period. There's still some debate about that, but I wanted to make committee members aware that the ministry's current position is the removal of a listed property does not preclude the municipality choosing to move forward with designation unless a prescribed event has occurred. So I just wanted to bring that to everyone's attention. On to item 7.3, the July 21st meeting cancellation. Because we are holding the meeting right today, there was a sense, unless there is a strong desire by committee members, that we do not need the July meeting. Are there any questions or comments on that? Not seeing any. And Megan, do we need a motion on this?
Yes, I provided that to you.
Perfect. So would someone be willing to move the cancellation?
I so move, James.
And I think Brock seconded.
Yes.
Any other further questions, comments? If not, I'll call the question. All of those in favor? Opposed? Okay, that's carried. Thank you so much. This brings us to item 8.1, staff update.
Thank you through you. There isn't much to update other than with this, the register will go forward to council at the July, I think it's 10th meeting. And then we will post it on the website once that it's approved. Following that posting, we will proceed to send out the letters to the listed property owners as discussed at our previous meeting. We've been working on compiling the list, the mailing list for all of that. So we're in good shape to get that done shortly after the register is posted. And that's it from staff.
Thank you. Any questions for staff?
James?
James?
It occurred to me as you're speaking about that, notifying the property owners through mail, through postal service. Did we make a suggestion at one point that that might be an announcement from the township? I'm just thinking of a broader way to send that information to the entire community.
Are you suggesting like a media release or something to that effect?
I think we raised that at one point,
Yeah.
and I'm simply asking whether it could even be through the township Facebook posting.
We could
or that kind of
absolutely do
stuff.
something to that effect. Go through social media just to indicate that property owners of properties that are included on the Heritage Register correspondence will be sent out in the, we can work on something to that effect in terms of it's coming out. If you have any questions, please contact staff and we're happy to work with you going forward. And we can also include some additional information about the Heritage Celebration grants as well.
Our clerk has a response as well.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and through you, Marnie, I was just going to suggest we could include that in the council catch up as a highlight from the meeting on July 10th.
Perfect. Thank you. Other questions for staff?
Sorry, through you, Mr. Chair, I was going to mention the invitations for the TLTIT party. I have hard copies of it in my office at my desk that I was going to bring to the meeting to hand out. I don't have the information right in front of me, so I will go get that and I can email it out to everybody.
Thank you.
Isn't that what you-
Any other questions for staff?
Here she goes.
No. Well, thank you. Council update.
If I may, I don't think there are any of significance. I believe you've been to the conference and that would be the last council action that I remember for the Heritage Committee. Approval of James going there, and I'm glad that it was a success. Thank you.
Thank you. And thanks to council for allowing James to go as well.
Pleasure.
So if I may pipe in then, I'll thank the council and this committee for supporting me in attending. I found it enjoyable and worthwhile, informative.
I will, on your behalf, James, I will mention that at council next, that it was well received and fruitful participation. Thank you.
This brings us to item 8.3, other business. Is there any other business? I'm not seeing any. Under item 8.4, CHO News has been attached as an appendix to the agenda from page 61 to 84. For those who are interested in that. I think that brings us to item 7.1. So at this point, I would ask James to take the chair and I will step out of the meeting. James?
Yes, I'll move.
Okay, so you've taken the chair. Perfect. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Mr. Chair.
Okay, so item 7.1, alteration to heritage property application, 1365 County Road 2, Springfield, Escott. Application for alteration to the heritage property at that address, bylaw 79-711. And so my understanding is that we are approving the process to a designated building. And I understand we have a speaker from the engineering company that is involved in the project, Jerry Zagarius. We'll turn the floor over to you, Jerry.
Great, thank you very much. I'm essentially here representing the Director of Operations and Infrastructure for the township. David Holliday has sent me his link to the meeting, so I believe he intended to be here as well, but I think those links are bespoke, so perhaps he was not able to join once he shared his link with me, but.
I'm here, Jerry.
Oh, perfect, he's here. Oh, great. So essentially, to summarize the project, I suppose, we're looking at carrying out some masonry repairs to the exterior. And we are looking to repair or remove and replace the front landing and the ramp, largely to accommodate some masonry repair work that's required on the street facing elevation. We're going to replace a damaged roof. We are going to remove and replace the damaged roof of the washroom addition. There's a small concrete block washroom addition. I believe it's on the north elevation. And we're carrying out some other masonry cleaning and some structural reinforcing of the second floor framing. The intent of which is to make the space useful for other, usable for other occupancies. It's currently quite dramatically overspan. And if anybody on the committee has been in that building, they'll know that it's quite springy on the second story. And when we ran the numbers on the capacity, it's quite far in excess of what would be a reasonable limit. So our design process was intended to minimize any of the impact to the heritage fabric and to do as little as possible so that we could maintain the building's original materials, original workmanship as best we could. One other item to point out is that we are also, in a sense, reinforcing the ground floor in that we are limiting the location for storage of racking, library racking. And that allowed us to eliminate some additional materials that we had initially thought might need to be added to the ground floor. So we were able to cut back on the invasive procedures quite dramatically as David and I talked through the project. So that's a summary of what's proposed for the work. I'm happy to address any questions that might come from the committee. I think I've spoken to a few by email already. David, I don't know if there's anything extra to add that I haven't touched on.
Sorry. Thanks, Jerry. In addition to this work, we are looking at addressing the updating the HVAC, as well as addressing the access to the washroom facilities on the main floor that are deficient. But that's something that will be outside of the scope of this work as well.
Thank you. I had a question, Jerry, in relation to your reference to limiting racking. The usual tenant of the building is the archives, and I'm wondering, does that involve some of that racking going on the upper floor then?
No, there would be no racking going on the upper floor. So the upper floor space is not designed for that same storage loading. What we've done is we determined the maximum aisle widths that would be required on the ground floor. And if the racking can stay within those limits, the existing floor framing is adequate to support a higher live load. So none of that would go on the second floor. It would all be on the ground floor. I'm not sure if it would be exactly the same arrangement as was in place when I initially visited the site a few years ago now. But I did speak with, I believe it was James from operations, about the width of the racking. So we were able to determine that the racking that was in place, we can fit it within the boundaries of what we were hoping to see.
Thank you. I actually forwarded a question in relation to the metal roof, which I would think should have some discussion. And that was the specification of the profile of that metal roof is a standard. And I questioned whether a hidden fastener system standing seam would either be more appropriate or more long lasting. Whether we have options in that area.
The short answer is there are certainly options. We specified a light gauge metal roof, similar to what is currently on the building, although of course a more modern iteration of that. And something that we've used on buildings of this size and utility in the past. But none of that is to say that the roof that we specified at the outset is what has to go on. I'm happy to look at any other roofing system that might be appropriate. The standing seam roof is typically marginally longer life. The hidden fasteners are often, an aesthetic reason to go that route as well. So I'm happy to look at that as an option, and David and I can discuss that in more detail.
Thank you. Are there any other questions for Jerry or David? Is it?
If I may, I just have a couple of questions regarding, because I'm perhaps not totally clear, what I understand is happening on the main floor to reinforce the upper floor is to put the metal the metal on the wall. Sorry, to support the LVL sisters that are going along the joists.
Yes, that's correct. So the new joists that we're proposing to use are a modern material. They're 11 7/8 of an inch deep, and the existing framing is 8.5 inches deep. And what we're proposing to do is to secure a steel angle flush to the underside of the new framing, and then bolt that into the brick wall.
Yes, I understood that part of it. I guess what I wasn't totally clear about, because in the restoration, you talked about re-drywalling. Does that mean the whole of the downstairs is going to have the drywall, the everything taken off it?
David, that's one of the details actually that David and I have not yet hammered out. We took this design essentially to make sure that we were addressing all of the structural concerns. As you can appreciate, addressing the structural concerns often means finishes are damaged, and we haven't yet made final decisions as to exactly what the final refinishing sequence will be. So
The reason
sorry.
No, the reason I'm asking this is if that sort of work is going to happen in the lower floor of the building, what is the end look going to be? There's also that odd area that has the lifted up floor. Is that going to go away? And if the walls are going to be re-drywalled, is there going to be insulation? Is something going to be done around the windows? The windows are I'm sure need to be completely foamed in to prevent draft. It just seems that there's some other work here that hasn't been discussed. I don't know, maybe it's envisioned, but it's certainly not mentioned here.
We recognize Art.
I had the same concerns. If the archives is to be climate controlled, do we not need a stud wall around the perimeter for insulation and vapor barrier and electrical services? And if that stud wall is required for other than structural purposes, then can we not use it to support the reinforcement for the second floor, rather than the steel angle bolted into the antique bricks, which I'm not sure I would have as much faith in. So it seems to me the stud wall and the interior is necessary anyhow, in which case we could use it for the structure.
I completely agree with that approach, and we've done that several times in the past. Given that was still an unsettled issue, let's call it, we determined that it was important to have some kind of workable design that works mathematically so that we can support that floor. And then if we do proceed with a new strapping wall inbound of the existing masonry in order to provide the insulation, the vapor barrier, and the finishes, chases for electrical and mechanical and all of those things, I would certainly look to use that to carry that load down through the ground floor framing and then out into the foundations. Well, that would be an alteration we would make, certainly.
Seeing no other questions.
Yeah, I had.
Sorry, go
question,
ahead, Art.
If I may. It was called for to strip the existing paint, the old paint from the door or window frames. I wondered if that included the window sash, or will the window sash remain in place? The point was, if we were going to strip the sash as well, meaning that they would have to be removed, then we should do some kind of weather stripping at the same time to avoid the duplication of effort there. I think at some point we need to put spring bronze weather stripping on those windows. And if they're going to be removed under this contract, we should do it at that time, rather than separating that work to be done in another contract.
Yeah, I don't, again, the window restoration is another piece of that puzzle that is still not yet fully in focus, but I can certainly appreciate that it would be a good idea to combine as many of these items together as possible. So we had some discussions about the window restoration and how far that's going to go. David and I will certainly discuss that in more detail.
The windows are a weak point, but I think they're capable of being much more efficient than they are with some spring bronze weather stripping. And I presume, or I understand from reading the notes that any deterioration in the window frames would be repaired with some kind of filler, epoxy filler, rather than piecing in new wood. Is that right?
It depends on the scope of deterioration, but yes, we would try to maintain as much of the original fabric as we could, rather than going to a Dutchman repair where we cut out and replace an entire piece. So we will, we would look to consolidate the existing material wherever possible, rather than removing.
That could be decided on a case by case, according to the conditions in the field, I presume.
Exactly. That's exactly right. This kind of work typically requires a little bit more construction oversight, because we are going to run into surprises and we will have to make decisions about existing conditions as they come up. So that's a great example of where it's very difficult to nail down the exact scope without having done an exhaustive assessment of each and every window frame, which was not the primary purpose of our assessment of the building to date. So, but I can certainly discuss that with David, and we can make sure that that's either accounted for in this scope of work, or that scope of work is clearly described in a future project.
A couple of places on the drawings I see mention of a 4-inch deck on the second floor. Has that been investigated? Is there actually 4 inches of material there?
Yeah, there is, or it's in several layers, but it's extremely thick. We had some openings cut on the second floor. It's a similar condition on the ground floor. I don't know if it's 4 inches on the ground floor, but it's also very thick on the ground floor.
Holy crow.
Yeah, there's a lot of material there. So I was very happy once we discovered a way that we could minimize the work on the ground floor, because the cost of that was going to be significant.
Wow. These studs and vapor barrier, insulation, etc., was a big concern. And I guess I was hoping to hear some assurance that the planning for the second half of this job was going along concurrently so that they could all be done at the same time. Like presumably if we're taking out the heating system, it should be installed new by next heating season. Is that possible or?
So what we've been working on so far is the structural requirements for this facility and the exterior requirements to try to address those. And those items are required to come through you guys for heritage approval. We will be consulting about the interior requirements as well, which from what I'm told is not actually required for heritage approval. But that's something that we will be working on before this entire package goes out the door. So we need you guys to have a look at the requirements for exterior and structural.
So they will go out together.
That's the hope, is that it will be one contractor working on this facility when the package is complete.
Mm-hmm. So whether it's in time for the next heating season or not, then it's not critical because it won't be occupied.
I'm not 100% certain on timing at this point for getting the work done. We're going through our processes and trying to get our ducks in line and then get it out the door as soon as possible.
Recognize Keith.
Through you, Mr. Chair, I just asked Mr. Halliday regarding the building and gosh, my question's gone into my head. I'll think of it in a minute. I'll get back to you.
Thank you, Jerry and David. I am going to go ahead and read the resolution that the Municipal Heritage Committee recommends the council approve the alteration to heritage property application 1365 County Road 2, Springfield, Escott, for the work that includes the repair and restoration of the exterior of the building and reinforcing work to accommodate loads in the ground and second floors, including a scope of work prepared for the TLTI submitted by Tacoma Engineers dated May 10, 2023 as follows. Number one, carry out masonry repairs to damaged brick units and mortar. Refer to attached drawings for approximate areas and locations. Number two, remove and replace front landing and ramp to accommodate masonry repair work. Number three, repair masonry of front and rear chimneys, provide chimney caps. Number four, remove and replace the existing steel roof. Number five, remove and replace roof of washroom addition. Number six, recoat all exterior wood and door trim. And number seven, clean masonry on rear elevation below existing chimney. Do I have a mover? Oh, further question, clarifications? Marnie.
On number one, if you could remove refer to attached drawings for approximate areas and locations, because they won't be attached to the resolution. That's all. And the resolution references the submission.
Okay, do I have a mover?
I so move.
Keith moves. And a seconder.
Do we have a seconder?
I'll second it, Jonathan.
Seconded by Jonathan. All in favor? Sorry. Calling the question then. All those in favor? All those opposed?
I think it's premature.
So that's nay, Art?
Pardon?
That's a nay?
Yes.
Okay. So we had 4-1. Carried. Question from Brock?
Just procedurally, if Mr. Shaw was unhappy, it is possible to defer. Just saying, if someone felt something was premature and there was some thought that they wanted specifically, that can be deferred. I just want to make that idea apparent procedurally. It's not perhaps something, it delays things significantly, so it might not be the best. I just want to make it clear.
Thank you.
I think there's a lot of small details that I guess I would like clarification on. We've touched most of the major ones.
So to be clear, Art, and this is a resolution, it still moves forward. Perhaps it remains possible, of course, to amend at later dates at council, I believe. I think that could be done. There will be, I'm sure, a report coming to council, and things can be brought forward at that time. That would be my belief. I would stand corrected if the clerk felt that was inappropriate.
If I may say, I don't want to hold up progress, so I'll live with the motion as it's been passed. But I think there's room for a lot of input still to the drawings. And like I say, in many details, but I think more details will come up as we try and coordinate this with the mechanical, the HVAC drawings that are happening from another source. So I don't think that this is necessarily the way it shows on those drawings and necessarily the way it will be dictated by the other service contracts, the other service, the contracts for the construction.
Megan, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and through you. Yes, so as Councillor Garrell mentioned, this will be brought forward to council. So the motion has carried. The vote was 4-1. So it will be brought forward to council, and then council can choose to either proceed with the motion as is, amend the motion, defer it, anything like that. I'm happy to provide any further clarification on that as well.
I think the issues I have are with the planners, with David and with with Tacoma, rather than with council. I don't want to hold up progress on it, so yeah, I'm happy that it's going ahead.
Thank you for that, Art. And I believe Dave did mention in terms of lots of input required and welcomed. Jonathan, you had a question or comment?
I do thank you, and I'm not sure who I should be addressing this to. And if this is not the appropriate time for it, someone just let me know, but I'm the new fella here. Is it the remit of this committee, or how deep do we go in terms of our level of review? It seems like we can either be sort of, are we aligned with the spirit of what the project is trying to do and sort of ensure that people are taking best efforts to do what they ought to be doing, or are we really supposed to be down into a very fine level of detail? I'm unclear about our scope that way.
Marnie.
Thank you, through you. The reasons for designation of the property speak primarily to the exterior elements of the building. So the heritage approval relates to the exterior of the building in terms of the repointing of the masonry, the brick, the steps, that type of thing. The interior work within the structures themselves is not subject to heritage approval through council. So the structure of this approval is really applying to the exterior improvements that are proposed.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments before we move on?
If I may,
Heath?
through you, Mr. Chair. The question I wanted to ask earlier of Mr. Holliday was about consultation. It seems to me that what's happening with the town hall, the Escott Town Hall, concerns this committee as far as heritage matters go, but it also concerns this committee in another way, since we have a long-standing connection with the archives, and the archives are going to be, I assume, will be the potential tenants or occupants of that building. So I just want to understand that the consultation will include the archives in a big way.
Thank you, through you, Chair. Certainly, we've involved archives in the discussions to this point, and we're happy to continue to have those consultations with them as we move forward as well.
And I assume that means asking, because although our archives is small, I mean, we do have the access to a lot more archival information and material and about how these spaces should be prepared to best accommodate the collections, that access will be used, I guess, to that information through, not just through the archives here, but through the Archive Association, for example, for the whole province, another archival.
I'm sorry, I don't think I follow.
Well, I mean, there's a great deal of work that's been done on preparing archival spaces. So it just seems to me that there's lots and lots of information out there that should be consulted in terms of preparing the heating, the HVAC for that space, just to make sure that we get the right thing the first time.
I see. Okay, I see what you're saying.
All right.
Yep, certain, we can include that.
Hurt.
Yeah, I think there's some details that we need to work out. If we're having the use of Springfield House, and if the floor structure that we can, that's capable of supporting our stacks in the town hall is limited to those spaces on the plan, then we don't want to waste those reinforced spaces with light duty occupation. We need to tie down what's going to happen in Springfield House and what's going to happen in the archive space, so that we can make the best use of the strong areas of the floor in the archives building. We lose flexibility, I guess, because of the restrictions in where the floor is strong enough. So we need to do some coordinating or some planning, what's going to happen where, to make best use of that.
Thank you, through you, Chair. Not to speak for Brock and council, I think that it's the decision of council who occupies what space ultimately. But Jerry, I believe they're looking at it's in terms of the racking that has been used. And Jerry, you can probably speak to this better than I can. The idea was that maybe it can be stored in a better manner. Was that what you were trying to get across before, Jerry? Not so much that we're reducing the amount of storage available, but more so how it is stored?
That's correct. We looked at what the storage was at the time of the site visits, and also speaking with staff. Well, James, I think the gentleman's name is James. He gave me some measurements of some of the racking and things like that. So the limitations on storage on the ground floor are intended to represent aisleways on either side of the center. So I don't expect that there will be a significant change in the amount of materials that can be stored on that ground floor, if any. In fact, I would expect that there may even be an increase in the amount of material that could be stored, because there were limited tall racking located along the outside walls.
The racking that we have isn't necessarily ideal. It was what we inherited, what was available. if the renovations could include buying, supplying racking that was ideal for the situation, we could make more efficient use of the space that we have. The racking that we were trying to make use of was a bit of a liability. So that's another factor that I would hope could be planned into the renovation is new racking to make best use of the space, because we need room to expand in the future. We're not trying to just put back in what we took out. We need to be able to have room to expand. Our existing racking doesn't lend itself to that.
David?
Thank you. We'll certainly take a look at what the MOU is between the archives and the municipality. And then if it does lead itself to us being able to do that, we'll present it to council and they will ultimately make the decision on the investment in the racking as well too. Once we get past the construction period, that's certainly the next discussion.
Yeah, it's these things that need to be worked out that may, prompted me to say that it's premature to approve this, but everything is still negotiable. So I hope we can work all that out.
Yeah, I would close that by suggesting there needs to be some consultation between the library administration in relation to archives and perhaps some professionals for how the archives goes back in there. So I'm looking for a motion to adjourn. Moved by Art. Thank you very much. Time is
We need a seconder.
seconder.
I will second that motion.
Keith. All those in favor? All those opposed? No opposed? Carried. And the time is 1:57. Thank you all.
Thank you, everyone. Have a great day.
Take care.